The silent invasion. The skies above Nova Prima burned orange as its twin suns set behind the mountain range. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of Outpost 7, watching as the colony's lights flickered to life across the valley below. 5 years of human settlement had transformed the once barren planet into a thriving community of 30,000. Their first successful extrasolar colony, humanity's pride and hope. Elena's comm unit buzzed. "Commander, we've got something." Lab 3. Now. 10 minutes later, Elena stared at the microscopic device under the scanner. Dr. Marcus Chen pointed at the holographic projection. "We found it embedded in our central water filtration system. It's not human tech." "What does it do?" Elena asked, her face betraying nothing despite the cold dread forming in her stomach. "It's designed to introduce trace amounts of neurochemical compounds into the water supply. Nothing immediately lethal, but over time." Marcus hesitated. "It would increase suggestibility, reduce critical thinking, and eventually cause neurological degradation." Elena's hand tightened around the edge of the table. "How many more?" "We found 17 so far, all in critical infrastructure. Water, air filtration, food processing, the agricultural drones." Marcus swiped through images of similar devices. "But here's the kicker. They're Valen technology." "The Valen, our supposed allies in the Concordat." Elena's voice was steel. "The very same who've been so generously helping us adjust to galactic society." The Galactic Concordat had discovered humanity just 3 years prior. Their massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit one Tuesday morning, promising friendship, technology, and a place among the stars. After centuries of science fiction speculation, first contact had been surprisingly anticlimactic. No war, no dramatic revelations, just bureaucracy, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. "How long have they been there?" Elena asked. "Based on the corrosion patterns, at least a year. Before the Valen ever officially arrived to assist our colony." Elena turned to Nova Prima's chief of security, Raj Mehta. "Who else knows?" "Just us 3 and the 2 techs who found the first device. I've ordered a communications blackout, citing routine maintenance." "Good. Keep it that way." Elena moved to the secure terminal. "I'm contacting Earth Command. In the meantime, replace those devices with duplicates. I want the Valen to think their plan is still working." 3 days later, Elena sat across from Earth's ambassador to the Concordat, Thomas Ward, in a secure underground facility. His holographic projection looked tired, the encrypted quantum channel adding a slight flutter to his image. "It's not just Nova Prima," Ward said grimly. "We've discovered similar devices on Earth and all 3 colonies, and we've intercepted communications. The Valen are just middlemen. This goes all the way to the Concordat High Council." Elena felt the weight of his words. "Why? What do they gain from this?" "Control. Resources." Ward passed a hand over his face. "We've been analyzing the economic patterns of other species who joined the Concordat in the last century. They all follow the same trajectory. First, technological dependence. Then resource exploitation disguised as fair trade. Finally, reduction to vassal states. And the sabotage. Any species that shows too much independence suffers tragic accidents. The Harvesters lost 2 colonies to atmospheric system failures before they fell in line. The Celteri had a mysterious plague, all after they questioned Concordat policies." Elena's mind raced. "How many other species are being exploited?" "At least 12 that we've identified. Mostly younger spacefaring civilizations. The senior Concordat members, the Valen, the Mrox, the Teleri, they run the show, divide the spoils." "Have we confronted them?" Ward laughed bitterly. "With what proof? Every time we present evidence, it's dismissed as misunderstandings or paranoia typical of a Deathworld species." That term again. Deathworlders. The Concordat classification for species evolved on high-gravity, high-radiation planets with extreme biodiversity and predation. Humans were Category 5, the highest level. The classification was presented as scientific fact, but used as a subtle slur. Primitive, paranoid, violent, not quite civilized. So what's our play? Elena asked. The Security Council has authorized Operation Wildcard. We're done playing by their rules. Ward leaned forward. Nova Prima is the perfect testing ground. Remote enough that the Concordat doesn't monitor it constantly, but important enough that the Valen ambassador visits regularly. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Kvrlox of the Valen hierarchy landed at Nova Prima's diplomatic port. Elena greeted him with practiced deference, noting the blue-gray sheen of his scaled skin and the subtle way his 4 eyes constantly scanned the environment. Commander Reyes, always a pleasure, Kvrlox said, his mouth tentacles writhing slightly as the translator converted his vibrational speech to English. I trust the agricultural purification systems we provided are functioning optimally. Exceeding expectations, Ambassador, Elena smiled. In fact, we've prepared a demonstration of their implementation. If you'd accompany me. As they toured the colony's agricultural dome, Elena pointed out the modified systems, knowing each had been stripped of Valen surveillance and sabotage technology. Kvrlox nodded approvingly, unaware that his every word and gesture was being recorded for pattern analysis. Your species adapts quickly, he remarked, though I've noticed some colonists appear fatigued. Perhaps the local solar radiation requires additional shielding. We're monitoring the situation, Elena replied smoothly, recognizing his probing for the expected symptoms of the neurological compounds. Some humans are simply more sensitive to new environments. As they approached the colony's quantum communications array, technology the Concordat had generously provided, Elena's comm unit buzzed with a prearranged signal. She frowned at the device. Apologies, Ambassador, but there seems to be an issue with one of our deep mining operations. Would you mind terribly if we detoured to the control center? Kvrlox hesitated only momentarily. Of course, Commander. The Valen are always eager to assist with technical difficulties. The control center was 3 levels below ground, secured behind multiple checkpoints. As they descended, Elena noticed Kvrlox's throat sac pulsing faster, the Valen equivalent of anxiety. Is the problem serious? He asked. Unusual readings from mining site K, Elena explained. Probably just sensor malfunctions, but with excavation that deep, we can't be too careful. The control center doors slid open to reveal a circular room filled with terminals. But instead of mining engineers, Kvrlox found himself facing Director Raj Mehta and Dr. Marcus Chen, along with 12 holographic projections of high-ranking officials from Earth Command. What is the meaning of this? Kvrlox demanded, throat sac now pulsing rapidly. Elena gestured to a central display where one of the Valen sabotage devices rotated in high definition. We were hoping you could tell us, Ambassador. Kvrlox's secondary eyelids flickered, a tell the human analysts had identified as indicating stress. I don't recognize this device. Strange, Elena said, since it bears the manufacturing marks of the Valen Technological Ministry. We found hundreds throughout our colony, and on Earth, and on every human settlement. This is absurd. Kvrlox's tentacles writhed agitatedly. If some unauthorized technology was included in our assistance packages, I assure you the hierarchy will investigate. Save it, Raj interrupted, bringing up another display showing intercepted communications between Kvrlox and the Concordat High Council. We know about the subjugation protocol. We know about the accidents planned for our Mars colony next month. Kvrlox went very still. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, dropping the diplomatic pretense. You've made a critical error, Deathworlders. If I don't report back, the hierarchy will send investigators. Oh, he'll report back, Elena said. In fact, we're counting on it. She nodded to Marcus, who activated another display, showing molecular diagrams. Do you recognize these, Ambassador? Kvrlox stared, his crest flattening against his skull. What are they? Compounds native to Earth bacteria. specifically engineered to bond with Valen biochemistry. Elena stepped closer. You've been exposed since you landed, as have all Valen who visited human settlements in the past month. You're bluffing, Kefirlox hissed. Such a bioweapon would violate Concordat law. Not a weapon, Marcus corrected. A tracking system, completely harmless, unless activated by a specific frequency. Then it becomes quite uncomfortable. Not lethal, just persuasive. Elena pulled up a chair across from the ambassador. Here's what happens next. You return to the hierarchy and report that human integration is proceeding normally. Meanwhile, we'll be having similar conversations with other exploited species. The harvesters, the Xelteri, the Jixun. Kefirlox's throat sac deflated. You don't understand what you're doing. The Concordat maintains peace among thousands of worlds. Through fear and exploitation, Raj cut in. That ends now. As the ambassador was escorted out, Elena received an encrypted message on her private channel. The source identifier read simply, DREXCOLECTIVE. The message contained only 9 words. When you are ready to strike, we stand ready. The Drex, a species so feared that even mentioning them caused discomfort among Concordat diplomats, officially classified as dangerous isolationists. The little known about them suggested they were the only species to successfully resist Concordat integration and suffer the consequences. Elena forwarded the message to Earth Command with a simple annotation. Phase 1 complete. Wildcard is in play. The Deathworld Gambit. 6 months passed. On the surface, humanity continued its eager integration into the Galactic Concordat. Trade increased. Cultural exchanges flourished. Human diplomats attended Concordat functions with appropriate humility and gratitude. Beneath this compliant facade, Operation Wildcard accelerated. In a secret facility beneath the Mariana Trench, Admiral Helena Vostok addressed representatives from 7 species via quantum-encrypted channels. The harvesters with their crystalline exoskeletons, the amorphous Xelteri, the insectoid Jixun, the aquatic Mizu, the gaseous Othuan, the silicate Krith, and most surprisingly, the mysterious Drex, their features obscured by environmental suits even in holographic form. The surveillance network is complete, Admiral Vostok announced. Every Concordat official who has visited any of our worlds in the past 6 months has been tagged with species-specific biomarkers. We can track their movements throughout Concordat space. The Valen suspect nothing. Asked the Harvester representative, light pulsing through their crystalline form. They believe their subjugation program is proceeding on schedule. The neurological symptoms we're exhibiting are precisely what they expected. And the Concordat listening posts. The Xelteri's amorphous form rippled anxiously. Fed exactly what they expect to hear. Admiral Vostok smiled. Meanwhile, our quantum communication network, built with technology the Drex provided, remains undetected. The Drex representative spoke, their voice modulated through their environmental suit. The weapons. Vostok nodded to her lieutenant, who brought up schematics on the central display. Adapted from Earth's biodiversity, targeted biological agents keyed to specific physiologies, non-lethal but incapacitating, engineered to break down after 48 hours, leaving no trace. And the delivery system. The Jixun's mandibles clicked rapidly. That's where we need your help. Vostok turned to the Mizu representative. Your atmospheric processors are installed on every Concordat station. The Othuan's gas phase technology can adapt our compounds for deployment through those systems. The Krith's crystalline storage matrices can keep them stable until activation. What of the defense systems? The Harvester asked. The senior Concordat species have technologies we cannot counter. The Drex representative leaned forward. Leave that to us. We have been studying Concordat systems for 3 centuries. We know their weaknesses. Admiral Vostok pulled up a star chart showing the massive Concordat Central Station, a construct the size of a small moon where the High Council convened. In 2 months, The Concordat celebrates its millennial anniversary. All senior officials will attend. So will a humble delegation from Earth, expressing our gratitude for being welcomed into galactic society. And that's when we strike. The Jixun asked. That's when we change the rules, Vostok corrected. No bloodshed unless absolutely necessary. We're not looking to destroy the Concordat, just force a renegotiation. 2 months later, Commander Elena Reyes stood in the grand reception hall of Concordat Central, wearing the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Around her, thousands of representatives from hundreds of species mingled, consumed exotic refreshments, and engaged in the careful dance of galactic politics. The Mrock's Imperator himself, Supreme Counselor Zagrath, was addressing the assembly from a floating platform, his massive reptilian form resplendent in ceremonial armor. Behind him stood the other 11 members of the High Council, including First Hierarch Rizalax of the Valen. 1,000 years of galactic peace, Zagrath proclaimed, his deep voice reverberating through the hall. 1,000 years of prosperity and advancement under Concordat guidance, from the elder races to our newest members. He gestured magnanimously toward the human delegation. All benefit from the stability we provide. Elena's comm unit vibrated against her wrist. A single word appeared. Ready. She caught the eye of Ambassador Ward across the room, who gave an imperceptible nod before approaching the Saltari delegation. Throughout the hall, human diplomats did the same, each moving to stand near representatives of the Wildcard Coalition. As Zagrath continued his speech, Elena activated her neural implant, accessing the quantum network. Through it, she could see the biomarkers of every tagged Concordat official pulsing like stars on her augmented vision. Hundreds of nodes, all interconnected, all vulnerable. And so, Zagrath was concluding, we welcome our newest members into the continuing legacy of the Concordat, where they will find guidance, protection, and prosperity. Elena sent the activation signal. Throughout the hall, the senior Concordat officials, the Valen, the Mrocks, the Teleri, suddenly stiffened. Some clutched their throats or equivalent respiratory organs. Others swayed on their feet. None collapsed, none appeared in serious distress. But all were clearly experiencing significant discomfort. Zagrath himself froze mid-gesture, his scales flushing a deep orange. What is happening? He growled. Ambassador Ward stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying throughout the now silent hall. A demonstration. Supreme Counselor. Nothing fatal. Simply a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. The human delegation moved in practiced unison, forming a perimeter around the central area. From beneath their formal attire, they produced small devices that projected a field of shimmering energy. The discomfort you're feeling, Ward continued, comes from the activation of biological markers introduced to your systems over the past 6 months. As I said, completely non-lethal. The effect will fade in approximately 48 hours. First Hierarch Rizalax of the Valen surged forward despite his obvious discomfort. This is an act of war. Guards, seize them. But the Concordat security forces found their weapons systems suddenly inoperative. Throughout the station, systems were shutting down in carefully orchestrated sequence. Life support and gravity remained untouched, but weapons, communications, and transit systems went dark. Your security protocols have been temporarily overridden, Ward explained as murmurs swept through the assembly. Again, a temporary measure. We have no desire for conflict. Zagrath's massive form trembled with rage or discomfort or both. What is the meaning of this outrage? A renegotiation, Ward replied simply. He gestured, and holographic displays activated throughout the hall, showing evidence of the Concordat's systematic exploitation. The sabotage devices, the intercepted communications, the economic data revealing the resource drain of dozens of worlds. We know about the subjugation protocol, Ward continued. We know about the staged accidents. We know everything. As the evidence mounted on the displays, reactions spread through the assembly. Many of the elder races showed no surprise. They were complicit. but the majority of species, particularly those from the middle and outer rings of the galaxy, registered shock, anger, and dawning comprehension. "You have violated our trust," Ward addressed the High Council directly. "You have sabotaged our colonies, attempted to drug our populations into compliance, and planned accidents to remind us of our place." He swept his arm toward the gathered representatives. "And we are not alone. The Harvesters, the Xeltari, the Jixun, the Mizu, the Othuan, the Krith, all have suffered under your guidance." From the shadows at the edge of the hall emerged several figures in environmental suits. The Drex representatives moved with fluid grace to stand beside the human delegation. A ripple of genuine fear passed through the elder races at their appearance. "Even the Drex," Ward said, "whom you have vilified for centuries as dangerous isolationists, are simply a species that refuse to be exploited." Supreme Counselor Zegrath found his voice again. "You have no concept of what you're doing, Deathworlders. The Concordat maintains order across thousands of worlds. Without our guidance, the galaxy would descend into chaos." Perhaps, Elena stepped forward, or perhaps it's time for a new order. One based on genuine cooperation rather than exploitation. Ambassador Ward activated another holographic display, showing a document titled the Deathworlder Accords. "These are our terms," he said simply. "Economic restitution for exploited resources, dismantling of all sabotage devices, reformation of the Concordat governance structure to include proportional representation from all member species, and accountability for those who orchestrated the subjugation protocol." First Hierarch Rizulax hissed, "And if we refuse?" In answer, the holographic displays shifted to show Earth's solar system, where a massive fleet had decloaked, ships of human design, but incorporating technologies clearly influenced by Drex engineering. "That is merely one fleet," Ward said quietly. "Similar forces have been positioned near the homeworlds of every High Council species, not to attack, merely to ensure negotiations proceed in good faith." He let the implications sink in before continuing. "Additionally, the biological markers in your systems can be reactivated at any time, from anywhere in the galaxy. Again, not lethal, but certainly persuasive." The hall erupted in chaotic discussion. Many of the younger species were openly supporting the human position now. Some of the elder races were calling for immediate military response. Others were already calculating how to adapt to this new reality. Supreme Counselor Zegrath raised his massive claws for silence. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its thunderous certainty. "You play a dangerous game, humans." "No," Elena stepped forward. "For the first time since we encountered the Concordat, we've stopped playing games altogether. This is deadly serious." She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes, or eye equivalents, of representatives from hundreds of worlds. "You called us Deathworlders, and meant it as an insult, but you forgot what that really means." Her voice carried throughout the vast chamber. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived predators, diseases, natural disasters, and our own worst impulses. We don't want war. We don't want dominion. But we will not be exploited." Ambassador Ward stepped forward again. "You have 24 hours to consider the accords. During that time, this station will remain under our control. Choose wisely." 3 days later, on the observation deck of the UEA's Defiant in orbit above Concordat Central, Elena watched as representatives from all Concordat species filed into the newly configured council chamber. The Deathworlder Accords had been signed, not without resistance from the elder races, but faced with the combined leverage of the Wildcard Coalition and the undeniable evidence of their exploitation, they had ultimately conceded. Will they honor it? Elena asked Admiral Vostok, who stood beside her watching the proceedings on a holographic display. "They'll try to find loopholes immediately," Vostok replied. "But with the oversight systems we've installed, and with so many species now aware of the previous exploitation, it won't be easy for them to return to business as usual." Ambassador Ward joined them, looking exhausted but satisfied. The Drex representatives are requesting a private meeting with Earth's delegation. They say they have a proposition regarding deep space exploration beyond the Concordat's borders. Elena raised an eyebrow. Another alliance. Perhaps. Ward smiled slightly. They seem to appreciate our approach to galactic diplomacy. You mean our willingness to break the rules when the rules are rigged against us? Elena asked. Exactly. Vostok chuckled. Apparently, that's a trait the Drex respect. They'd been waiting centuries for a species that would not only notice the Concordat's exploitation, but actually do something about it. Through the viewport, Elena watched the sprawling structure of Concordat Central, now transformed into a genuine forum for intergalactic cooperation rather than a tool of subjugation. It would take years, perhaps decades, for true change to take root. The elder races wouldn't surrender their advantages easily. But for the first time since humanity had reached the stars, they were negotiating from a position of strength. Not because they were more advanced or more numerous, but because they had recognized the rigged game and refused to play by its rules. Deathworlders, Elena murmured, finding new pride in the term. Perhaps it's time the galaxy understood what that really means.